My guest is here, Mr. Deji Yesufu, is an author and public affairs analyst. He authored the book, Victor Banjo, An Untold Account of the Nigerian Civil War. It's good to see you again today, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, good. Let's start from here. You saw the story about Governor Akeredolu's, disagreement with the federal government, alleged this time around, an approval of the use of AK-47 by some security outfits in Katsina. Of course, the police, have come to deny that story, but there are some strings that we can attach in this claim. It says they were only being trained with it. Let's start from there. What do you think?
Okay, well, Nigeria I don't know whether to call it a mystery, but somehow it's working itself out, and hopefully in the days to come we will get our acts together. And all of this conversation, including what we're doing here in the radio, on the radio station, including the book I wrote, everything is what is helping to shape out what a nation state should be. Okay, so on paper, the Nigerian government, especially from what the police has responded to there, the Nigerian government has not given license to any vigilante group to use weapons. Okay, the reason is very simple. Government cannot allow for unauthorized or third parties besides security outfits like the police or the military, okay, to own these weapons and to use. Okay, so they cannot come out full-fledged or on paper to say they have licensed vigilante groups to use weapons. It's not possible. But what is obvious, especially in these days of the social media, is that a video emerged that showed vigilante groups in Katsina holding AK-47. Okay, so the governor of Ondo State has now brought this out to the public space and said, you are not licensing vigilante groups in the southwest, that's the Ametekin group, our group. You're not licensing them with weapons. But here are your own people owning weapons. We cannot have one country and two different systems. It has to be one country and one system. We have to agree on what we are going to have to do. Okay, so in response to that, the police has now come out and said, no, we didn't license them. So now we are now going back to the drawing table. What are we going to do as a country? We have insecurity creeping into our territory daily, and the government at the center, it's obvious that they cannot deal with the insecurity at all levels. So what are we going to do? That is why you and I are in the studios this morning.
Okay, so before we go to open up the matter, in a bigger way, yes, I'd like to stay on the comments of the police public relations officer in Katsina.
Yes.
So for me, the question will be, why are you training vigilantes with AK-47 if there is no plan to allow them to use it?
Yeah, just like, it's the same thing. I think it's something that is everywhere. Many times there are things that are not official, and many times there are things that are unofficial. Okay, so officially, we are not licensing AK-47 to this vigilante group, but unofficially, these people are using the weapons. So that's the dichotomy here, but there is no time, there is no day that the Nigerian nation will not settle down on this whole issue of how exactly does a man deal with insecurity in his life. I would wish to bring the American story here, but I hope I wouldn't extend it beyond that. So that's just what it is. We have the official and the unofficial dichotomy on ground. Yes.
I like your definition. But okay, so the Amotekun Corps has done 2 years now.
Yes.
2 years and some days now that the Southwest states came together to say we're establishing this security network. You remember that the federal government attempted to push back on this matter.
Yes.
Could this be a follow-up to that attempt 2 years ago?
Well, it is. In fact, the reaction now is not even coming from the federal government. The reaction to the Amotekun story, the original one, because you see, the Amotekun was set up as a security outfit, and you don't have a security outfit that don't have weapons. Okay. And government is saying, or government said then, they cannot authorize weapons to Amotekun. So the Ondo State governor is now coming out and say, but you have security or vigilante groups, security outfits are up there in the north who are using these weapons. Why are you not giving us the go ahead? So that is a follow-up, and I personally think it's an outworking of a national discourse that eventually we're going to get to that point. What do we do about the issue of insecurity in our land? That's where we're going to right now.
So you believe that states can set up their own, if you like, parallel, or maybe using the words of the Inspector General, quasi-security outfits to mitigate, insecurity in their states.
Yes,
you think so?
Yes.
You think it's in order?
Ultimately, it's not it's not what's on paper right now. It's not official, but ultimately, this country will have to come to this issue of how do we deal with insecurity, and it's not even at federal level alone, or at state level alone, or at local government level alone, even including what every man does in his own neighborhood, including what every man does in his house. Okay, because you see, there is no liberty anywhere except it is enforced. And people enforce liberty with weapons. That's what they do. Okay, so yes, we have the liberty to move around today because we have so-called security. Thank God for our police. No matter the issues we have with them, they are doing a level of work to allow some of us to have the liberty to move around. If there are no law enforcement around or in a society, there will be no liberty, because you just be going on the road and somebody will just come and say, give me your bag, give me your phone. Okay, but because there is law enforcement, then people have liberty. But then the liberty again now is also being curtailed. Our liberties are being curtailed because we have encroaching insecurity from the north coming down into the southwest. I don't know whether you came across the latest news item that Sahara reporters reported yesterday, that ISWAP is in southwest Nigeria. That is what is happening. These people are coming in. So if such a thing is happening, thank God for Amotekun. But it's not only Amotekun that is going to deal with this thing. Eventually, it might even reach to the point that every man and woman in his house has got to own a gun and a weapon to ward off insecurity.
You're calling for bedlam?
No, I'm calling for what works in functional societies.
Like America, where they're killing themselves every day?
Well, in America, they may have that situation. But at the same time, you also have the situation where nobody can just step into the property of another person. Because you know that the other person will be asking you, what are you doing there? If you don't leave my property in the next 5 minutes, I'll blow your heads off. You have trespassed. You understand? So liberties are enforced with weapons at all levels, not just states. Okay, so for now we're still at federal level officially. We are trying to come to state. Ultimately, we're going to get to our neighborhoods, everybody having to guard his property so that no other person can trespass. Because the hearts of human beings are desperately wicked. That's what our own scripture says. The Bible says it's desperately wicked. People have a tendency to want to take advantage of the other person. Okay? And yes, I may not have physical strength, but if the other person suspects that I have a gun on me, he's not going to trespass my boundaries. So I have liberty to go about doing what I want to do.
Should it indeed be about acquiring sophisticated weapons or addressing the national existential questions of insecurity? Yes,
the national existential question of insecurity has brought forth this whole issue of how do we deal with our securities or our liberties, or how do we live our lives? Okay, and none of us asked for Boko Haram. The thing crept up into our national consciousness, and those who have followed history know that Boko Haram didn't even come up in 2009. It has been with us since the 70s. Okay? Other people even trace it to the 18th century, 17th century. There had always been a tendency for our groups to use religious context for violence. Okay? So now that we're in the supersonic age, and now that people are moving on in lives, now that surgeries are being performed with laser beams, we are asking those who want to live in antediluvian ages to give us space so that we can live our lives. You know, and the only way they will listen is to bring out the gun for the gun.
But this is Nigeria.
Yes, sir.
Nigeria is a governed space, isn't it?
It is. It is, sir. So ultimately, remember I said from the beginning, ultimately we're still going to attend to how does each man handle the security of his own space. For now, federal. We're getting to state, dear. Ultimately, we'll get to local government, our neighborhoods, and then each man's. But there is no liberty except it is enforced, and you enforce these things with weapons.
So you're on the same page with Governor Akeredolu that our Motekun needs to carry sophisticated weapon.
Well, thankfully I'm not paid by Governor Akeredolu, so I can say that unofficially somewhere I know that the Motekun people are not carrying out their jobs with cutlass. They have been carrying guns. You know, so they are just throwing this matter into the public space and saying that, why are you criticizing what we are doing when your own people are doing the same thing?
But what guns are they carrying?
I'm not sure. Maybe ding guns. But there's no way you can enforce security with knives. You enforce security with weapons. That's what's going to happen, you know. But honestly, sir, I think we should appreciate the fact that insecurity has gotten to our doorsteps. It is here.
All right.
So we must deal with it.
Afeni Fire here is also decrying the federal government's quote-unquote double standards. The Pan-Yoruba social-political group Afeni Fire on Friday expressed dismay over what it called the double standard being flagrantly displayed by the federal government in its dealings with states in the southern and northern parts of the country concerning security issues and arming of local security outfits. Afeni Fire, in a statement by spokesperson Ajari Ajayi, against the backdrop of a disclosure by Ondo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, described as unacceptable the federal government's granting of permission to the Katsina State government to equip its security outfit with weapons, including AK-47 rifles, while denying same for other states. I'd like to quote them now. The group noted that this instance was one among many others, but said we want to restrict ourselves to the most recent one for now because of the serious implications it holds for our security, political and socio-economic well-being. And so they described it as a robbery, right, and double standards. Yes, your response to that?
Yes, we are grateful to God for our groups, the pan of Yoruba groups that are speaking for us. But, you know, you mentioned that I authored Victor Banjo. This problem of double standards and how to deal with the North and the South has always been there, you know, and Southern Nigeria is just at this moment insisting that whatever you do for the North, you should also, you should permit for the North, you should also permit for the South. You know, it's been our challenge from the beginning. It's like two countries, and some of you may not appreciate it, but I grew up in Zaria. You know, I grew up in Kaduna State in the ABU Ahmadu Bello University quarters. My father was a lecturer there. You know, and I saw the amenities we enjoyed as young people growing up. You know, the houses we lived in. We were living in GRAs in northern Nigeria. We're living well. So when I came down here and I saw how lecturers' children were living, I was like, what is this one? You know, double standard. The kind of things that are provided for northern people is not what is given to the South. I don't know whether it's because in the South we're so populated, but at the same time, I understand that the northern figures, population is even more than this place. So why the double standard? You know, so we are thankful to God for the Afenifere people who are speaking out and asking, look, if you're going to do this for the North, do the same for the South. You know, the issue of permitting weapons for security is a long-term thing. But at the same time, there are going to be short-term measures and then long-term. Ultimately, we're going to have to put in laws that will allow what kind of weapons can be used at what level and how they are going to be used.
The governor is asking for sophisticated weapons. So and AK-47 is in that class.
Yes, sophisticated weapons are going to have to be used at the highest level of security. It would not be allowed by the security. It won't be allowed for every man. That is what it says, the argument in the US, that don't allow sophisticated weapons for anybody on the street. But everybody must have a level of security, a level of weaponry.
So specifically, you think that Afenifere should be allowed to, Amotekun should be allowed to carry sophisticated weapons?
Yes, sir. Simple and short.
Yes, simple and short.
Yes,
all right, so I will challenge you in a moment when we come back from this break. The Inspector General of Police has said that the quasi-security agencies, in other words, referring to Ibubiagu, Amotekun, and so on and so forth, are not permitted to be part of electioneering process. We will come to this matter in a moment. It's still State Affairs on Splash FM 105.5. State Affairs on Splash FM 105.5. I'm having conversation with Mr. Deji Yesufu. He is a public affairs analyst and author of the book Victor Banjo, An Untold Account of the Nigerian Civil War. Before we went on that break, I told you that I will challenge you. I remember that when we discussed your book on my program, you had issues with state police. And you said that it will be difficult to trust state governors with state police, particularly in a system like Nigeria.
Yes, sir.
Do you still hold that view?
Okay. Well, at this point, you're putting me on the spot.
Yes, I told you that.
Thank you for that. The truth of the matter is that, first of all, a lot has happened in Nigeria. That discussion must have been 2018. A lot has happened in this country that would cause any right-thinking person to re-examine his position. Okay. The state police thing, indeed, is true. It's actually going to be very difficult to entrust security outfit officially to the hands of our governance, because we're still at a level in politics where it's like an immature level, and we find situations where they don't even have state police. Many of them are using thugs and all of that to enforce laws and policies in the state. So that's on one hand. But on the other hand, like I told you, the story of this country is evolving. Okay, things are changing. Things are happening every day that is causing for us to rethink our stance. For example, I was on Splash FM with Mr. Akinola, and we're discussing the forthcoming election, and that was at the point where I'd actually come out to say I was supporting Peter Obi, and he said, can Peter Obi come in? Can he win this coming election? And I said then that, look, as of that time, which was like 2 months ago, Peter Obi could not. But as of now, right now, I can boastfully say that, look, he's on the front. Okay, in another 6 months or 4 months where we go for the election, things would have changed. That is how the Nigerian situation changes every day, And so it's the same thing with our political system. I believe that our state governors and our political system can mature enough to the point where these security outfits, with weapons, can actually be entrusted to the governors at the state level. So I believe we're evolving.
So your views have changed?
Yes. But because of Nigeria that is changing every day.
Interesting.
Yes, sir.
So the question now is this. I told you that I would be making reference to the Inspector General of Police. I think I should play it again. This is what the Inspector General of Police has to say about this quasi-security agencies. That's his expression for describing them. And he says that they are not to participate in the electioneering process, starting with campaigns this September. From the 28th of September, campaigns will start for the National Assembly and the presidential election. And then 2 weeks later, campaigns will start for the governorship and the state assembly elections. He says all the quasi-security agencies should stay clear. I'd like you to listen to Inspector General of Police, and then we'll come back.
The main purpose of this conference is to review the evolving political programs as laid out by the Independent National Electoral Commission and chart clear pathways to ensure a smooth electoral process in the countdown to the 2023 general election. As you are aware, in compliance with Section 94, Subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2022, INEC has confirmed that electioneering campaigns by all political parties could officially commence on the 28th of September 2022. The import of this is that the national political space will soon become active and the possibility of increase in politically related offenses may become heightened across the country. As the lead agency in the election security process, the political campaign security governance is primarily the statutory obligation of the Nigeria Police. In this regard, the Electoral Act 2022 and the Code of Conduct and Rules of Engagement for Security Personnel in Electoral Duty, which was issued in 2020 by the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, must remain our guide. These two election security instruments grouped the mandate of the Nigeria Police into 4 key fields as follows. 1. Ensuring the safety and security of all persons and properties that will be involved in the entire electoral process without bias. 2. Strict enforcement of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Criminal/Penal Code, as well as the electoral laws without fear or favor. Number 3. Security, traffic and crowd management at venues of political parties, campaign, rallies and other activities relating to elections. And number 4. The security of the public space towards guaranteeing a crime-free and enabling environment for the political campaigns and other components of the electoral process to strive. Note and be strictly guided by the fact that all quasi-security outfits that are established by various state governments and local communities and which are operating under different nomenclature, structures and orientations have no legal role under the Electoral Act and within the electoral process. Hence, you are charged to ensure that they are not in any way or manner utilized by any political or community actor for any role during the electioneering campaign and other electoral processes in the countdown to the 2023 general elections. Such will amount to acts in illegality and potent threat to national security, which could be inimical to our nation's democratic interest. Convey the decision banning all quasi-security outfits in the various states and local governments or communities from electioneering campaign and other politically related activities to your state governors, local government chairmen, community leaders, and the leadership of all political parties in your commands for their guidance. In so doing, it should be clearly emphasized to them that any unauthorized quasi-security agent found to be engaging in any election or political activities stands the risk of being arrested and prosecuted along with their collaborators.
All right, it's State Affairs on Splash FM 105.5. Inspector General of Police Usman Baba, they're saying no show for quasi-security agencies. Deji Yesufu is still here. You agree with him, right?
Yes, sir. I agree completely. I do not think that, I was talking about maturity. The Nigerian political system has not matured enough to the point where they can be, we can be entrusted, security apparatuses at various levels, at the lower level can be entrusted with weapons. And what he's saying is that non-official security agents like Amotekun, of course they shouldn't be there. In fact, the whole idea of having police manning electoral processes is still all based on this immaturity we're talking about. Where the political process has evolved in other nations. You don't have the whole society shut down because of elections. People still go to work on election day. But in Nigeria, it's because of where we are. We have to shut down the day. Then we have to pour out police and sometimes soldiers. It doesn't, as if the whole country is in a war situation. Ideally, we should be able to have matured, and that's where we're going to. Hopefully, we'll get there. Where on election day, everybody goes about their business. In fact, it might even be possible to be able to carry out your election on your phone. And those who have to go to a voting point, they go out and do their voting. In the University of Ibadan, just last year, they were able to carry out election on their phones. People who are voting in the
Polytechnic of Ibadan, they also have e-voting.
So what are we talking about? People are already doing this, even in this country.
When you have 5,000 voters, you can do that.
Yes.
But you have, potentially about 95 million voters.
Yes. So what will happen is you will give opportunity for those who must go out to the physical election booths, they will do theirs. And those who want to stay in the comfort of their homes, they will do theirs. But that way it will offer for a lot more people to be able to have a say in the voting process. It is that whole process of stepping out of your house to go and vote. That is what disenfranchises almost half of our voting population in this country.
I'd like to stay on your word, maturity. And it still calls to question the fact that we may not be ready for what you like to describe as these security agencies that have been set up by states. We probably might be jumping the gun because we're not mature enough for that.
What might be happening right now, or what is actually happening right now, is that we're having different situations on ground. We have a legal process of electing our leaders that must come to pass or come through every 4 years. Okay? It is based on that some of us are suggesting that the police should be able to handle that. In fact, the police alone, we don't need soldiers on our roads. The police alone should be able to handle that, But when it comes to the situation where there is increase in insecurity in our daily lives, not just in one situation, or one circumstance, or one event that happens once in 4 years, but the insecurity that is occurring in our daily lives, with insurgencies creeping into our region. For that, we would have to beef up the security. This security, Amotekun and all the rest that we're talking about, they're actually supporting the police. They are not taking the role of the police. They're supporting them, and it's on that basis that I am suggesting the two can work, sir.
All right. By the way, I was going to ask the question. Akeredolu is a member of the APC.
Yes.
He seems to be tackling the APC more.
Well, we are thankful to God for persons like that. It's just that, when your political, it still probably boils down to this maturity thing I'm talking about. Akeredolu was elected by his people. He was not elected by the APC, and he still has the moral commitment to see his people secured. We have seen some very horrible insecurity situations in Ondo State. And it appears that he is the one that is like the first to receive it, probably because he's on the fringe of the Southwest. So he has no choice. He has to speak. He has to relegate party commitment to a second standard now, or to the second stage, and see to it that his people are secured. So I guess that's the reason why he's talking that way.
All right, we'll conclude on this matter in a moment. So let me return to Deji Yesufu, and as we wrap up now. So you've said that to some level, this state-formed security agencies need to carry some level of weapon.
Yes.
So it now depends on the kind of sophistication that they would, be, bringing to the table.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But the question for you now is, as we wrap up this conversation, is, do you agree that, okay, you said double standards, okay? But do you think it's deliberate on the part of the federal government to try to prevent these agencies from carrying weapons, or the fact that the federal government is interested in national security?
Yes. What's happening right now is that we have people in government at the highest level who many times are slow to think things through and take action. Okay, one of the biggest challenge with having older people in places of authority is this problem of being slow. Yes, I'm authority. I'm saying it.
You're already labeling older people.
No, it's everywhere. I work in churches. I work everywhere. When you have older people in a committee, it can take you a year to make a decision. But young people have a tendency to be, they're go-getters. They're able to see a problem, they tackle it. They provide a policy. Problems arise inside that policy. They provide solutions. That's why young people, and I'm not talking about youths because they are growing, but people in middle ages, people between 40, 55, are people who you find in corporations that are working. When you go to our banks that must make profit to pay salaries, you don't find geriatrics there. You find young people who will deliver results. When you go to marketers who must bring business to the company, you don't find older people. There is young people who will go out, they can hit 4, 5, 6, 10 locations in a day, and they are sure that 2 of them will produce results. That is what moves systems. So our problem here is that we have I say it with all due respect, but it's like a geriatric kind of leadership. And when problems come, it's taking them a long time to think it through and then to say, okay, why don't we permit this? But in permitting this, there will be some problems that will come along with the new situation. Okay, so these are the guardrails we'll provide for it. That is just the challenge. Hopefully, this country can get the election right in 2023 so that we can have leadership that is workable, that is visionary, that has energy, that is able to say, okay, look, let's do this. And then problems come. Let's give them state police. And then we see some governors who are using that state police to their own advantage. Then you put in some other measures to curtail that. You could even bring up laws to say, okay, to limit their dealings with it. It could even be that, okay, maybe the federal government that would institute those state police and say this is to the extent to which you can work with the state governors, but all of it is focused at ensuring security for the ordinary people. But when you have geriatric leadership, we'll take a year to make one decision.
Wow. Mr. Deji Yesufu is author of Victor Banjo, an untold account of the Nigerian Civil War, and a public affairs analyst. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. This your geriatrics persuasion. We'll talk about it some other time.
Yes, sir.
The program is State Affairs on Splash FM 105.5. I have a break.